You know what's wild? You'll spend 3 hours trying to fix something yourself instead of sending a 5-second text asking for help. You'll physically hurt yourself carrying groceries in one trip because making a second trip feels easier than asking someone to help you bring them in. You'll sit in your car in the parking lot Googling how to do something when the person who knows how to do it is literally sitting in your contact list. And the weirdest part? You're not lazy. You're not stubborn. You're actually the person everyone else calls when they need help. You show up. You fix things. You listen. You carry their weight without even thinking about it. But when it comes to asking for yourself, the words just don't come out. If that's you, this is going to make a lot of sense. And because what you're doing isn't random. It's not a personality flaw. Your brain learned this. And once you understand why, the whole thing starts to click. Let me explain. First, I need you to hear this. You're not broken. You're not emotionally unavailable. You're not too independent or cold or incapable of connection. Your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do. At some point in your life, probably when you were young, you learned that needing people was a risk. That asking meant you might be disappointed, rejected, seen as weak, or worse, seen as a burden. So your brain made a decision. It decided that self-reliance was safer, and every time you figured something out on your own, that belief got stronger. Now it's automatic. Now it's who you are. But let's talk about how this actually formed, because this behavior doesn't just appear out of nowhere. The first reason people struggle to ask for help is because their nervous system learned that independence equals safety. When you were younger, maybe you asked for something and it didn't come, or it came with a sigh, with frustration, with a comment about how you should have been able to handle it yourself. Your brain recorded that moment, it filed it away under asking feels bad. So the next time you needed something, you hesitated. And the time after that, you didn't ask at all. You started solving things alone. And every time you succeeded, your brain reinforced the pattern. See? You don't need anyone. You're fine on your own. This shows up in the smallest ways. You don't text your friend when you're having a hard day because you don't want to bother them. You don't ask your partner to pick something up on the way home because it feels like more effort than just doing it yourself. You don't ask for help at work because explaining the task takes longer than finishing it. And on the surface, this looks like efficiency. It looks like independence. But underneath, it's protection. Your brain is trying to keep you safe from the feeling of being let down. Think about how many times you've said, "I'm fine," when you absolutely were not fine. How many times you've downplayed what you're going through so no one has to carry it with you. That's not dishonesty. That's a survival strategy. You learned that your needs were safer when they stayed invisible. The second reason is rooted in how you were raised. If you grew up in an environment where emotions were inconvenient, where needing attention felt like interrupting, where problems were met with impatience, your brain made a decision early on. It decided that being low maintenance was the way to stay loved. You became the easy kid, the independent one, the one who didn't ask for much, and people praised you for it. They called you mature, self-sufficient, responsible. You wore that identity like a badge of honor. But here's what no one tells you. That badge gets heavy. Because self-reliance, when it's born from the fear of being too much, isn't strength. It's loneliness wearing a disguise. You see this in your relationships now. You're the friend who listens, who holds space, who shows up when people are falling apart. But when you're the one struggling, you disappear. You go quiet. You handle it in private. And when someone asks if you're okay, you deflect. You make a joke. You say you're just tired, because letting someone see that you need something feels like handing them a weapon, like giving them a reason to decide you're too much work. This is why people who can't ask for help are often the most giving. They know what it feels like to need someone and not have them. So they make sure they're always available, always reliable, always there. It's beautiful, and it's completely exhausting. The third reason is about control. When you ask for help, you give someone else a piece of your outcome. You hand them part of your life and trust that they won't mess it up. And if your past taught you that people are unreliable, unpredictable, or conditional in their love, that trade feels dangerous. So you keep everything in your own hands. Because at least then, if something goes wrong, it's on you. You can live with your own mistakes. What you can't live with is trusting someone and having them let you down. This shows up as perfectionism, as micromanaging, as redoing tasks other people already finished because they didn't do it the way you would have done it. You're not controlling because you're difficult. You're controlling because letting go feels like free falling, and you've fallen before. You remember how that felt. So you grip tighter, you carry more, you tell yourself it's just easier this way. But here's the part nobody tells you. Your brain isn't just protecting you from pain, it's protecting you from the memory of pain. So even if the people in your life now are safe, even if they genuinely want to help you, your nervous system is still responding to the past. It's still bracing for the version of help that came with strings attached, or the version that never came at all. And until you recognize that, you'll keep white-knuckling your way through situations that don't have to be carried alone. The fourth reason is tied to identity. You've built your entire life around being the capable one, the person who doesn't need anything, the problem solver, the rock. And when your whole sense of self is wrapped up in not needing people, asking for help doesn't just feel vulnerable. It feels like you're dismantling who you are. Like you're admitting you've been lying this whole time, or breaking some unspoken promise you made to yourself years ago. And this is where it gets interesting, because the older you get, the more this behavior starts to shift. When you're young, self-reliance feels like power, like freedom. But as you age, as life gets heavier, as responsibilities pile up, it starts to feel like isolation. The same pattern that used to make you feel strong now makes you feel invisible. You realize you've been so good at not needing anyone that people stopped offering. And now when you actually do need something, you don't even know how to ask. The words feel foreign in your mouth. The vulnerability feels unbearable. So you stay silent, and the loneliness deepens. You see this in people who grow old alone, not because they're unlikable, but because they never let anyone in. Who build entire careers, reputations, lives, but no real intimacy. No one who actually knows them, because being known would have required letting someone see the messy parts, the uncertain parts, the parts that needed help. And the behavior doesn't disappear as you age, it evolves. You don't stop being self-reliant, you just start noticing the cost of it. You start feeling how heavy it all is, how tired you are, how much energy it takes to keep pretending you're fine when you're not. And you wonder if maybe it would be okay to let someone help you. Just once. Just with this one thing. But the fear is still there. So you hesitate. You test the water. You ask for something small. And if it goes well, maybe you try again. But if it doesn't, you retreat fast. The walls go right back up. The fifth reason people struggle to ask for help is because not asking regulates their entire emotional world. When you don't ask, you don't risk disappointment. You don't risk someone saying no. You don't risk being seen as weak, needy, or incompetent. You stay in control of how people perceive you. And in a world that feels unpredictable and chaotic, that control is everything. It's the one thing you can count on. You might not always succeed, but at least you won't be let down by someone else's inability to show up. This is why asking for help feels like opening a door you've kept locked for years. On the other side of that door is like complete uncertainty. Maybe they'll help. Maybe they'll judge you for needing it. Maybe they'll say yes, but secretly resent you. Maybe they'll help this time, but hold it over your head later. Your brain has been running these calculations your entire life. And every single time, the math says the same thing. It's safer to stay on this side of the door. But here's what your brain doesn't account for: the cost of never opening that door, the relationships that stay shallow because you never let anyone see you struggle, the resentment that builds when you're always the one giving and never receiving, the loneliness that settles in when you realize nobody really knows you, not because they don't care, but because you never let them close enough to see the parts of you that need something. This behavior is like an anchor. It keeps you steady when everything around you feels chaotic. It gives you a predictable way to move through the world. And for a long time, that's exactly what you needed. But anchors are designed to keep you in one place. And at some point, you might realize you're ready to move. You just don't know how to lift it. So where does that leave you? Right here, in this moment, with a brain that's been doing its absolute best to keep you safe, with a nervous system that learned independence because dependence felt dangerous, with a history that taught you self-reliance was the only way to survive, and with a present where that same survival strategy is starting to feel less like protection and more like a prison. You're not broken for struggling to ask for help. You're human. And somewhere along the way, you learned that needing people was too risky. So you built a life where you didn't have to need them. You became strong, reliable, the person everyone could count on, and that strength is real. But so is the weight you've been carrying. You don't have to fix this. You don't have to force yourself to ask for things before you're ready. You don't have to perform vulnerability just to prove you're healing. You just have to understand that the reason asking feels impossible isn't because there's something wrong with you. It's because a long time ago you learned that asking meant risking something you couldn't afford to lose. And maybe one day you'll be ready to risk it. Or maybe you won't. Either way, you're still here. Still carrying what needs to be carried. Still figuring it out. You don't owe anyone your struggles. You don't owe anyone access to the parts of you that hurt. But you also don't have to carry everything alone just to prove you're strong enough. You already know you're strong enough. You've been proving it your whole life. And don't forget to subscribe or click join to support the channel and become a member. It is genuinely appreciated and help to give more.